think from someone locally or internationally is available to you by being an AAW member.
Great.
I'd
Certainly.
be really interested in knowing, like, some funny story that you were personally involved in at the beginning where you learned something that was significant to you.
Who wants to comment on that?
I'll tell you.
Well, the second meeting I ever came to, there were 3 guys up working on the lathe, and they were all 3 missing a digit.
And you joined anyway?
I almost didn't. But they assured me they didn't do it turning wood. So,
One of the
Okay.
first
Ex-members of the woodworkers.
right.
one of the first meetings that I went to, I was sitting next to Anthony Harris, and Anthony had never demoed before, and he was nervous as all get out. You almost had to prod him to get up there in front of that lathe. But to see what he does now, he was scared to get up there and demo.
Well, on that note, what Anthony couldn't do with demoing, he filled in with jokes. Now back to the AAW for a moment. As I remember, back in the early days, Merle Schneck did an awful lot of work to find turners to come in and do a show for us. But Jerry and Linda, when they started going to those AAW meetings, they brought, and we owe them a gracious debt of gratitude, they brought so many turners in here for our special meetings that otherwise I don't think we would ever have had contact with. Thank you, Jerry and Linda.
Great. Great. I've got a whole list of questions here about members and everything. Wanted to start off with, Anthony could tell us, why did you pursue wood turning? I mean, you know, there's thousands of other activities and hobbies that you can, you know, participate in. Why wood turning?
When I was in the 7th grade, never mind. I had my first wood project was going to be a 4-legged stool. It's going to have, 8 runners, so 4 runners around, 2 levels of them. And I wanted the tops of my stool to be square, the legs, and the bottom to be round. And I was going to use rush and weave it so it became the seat. And so I was pretty excited. I had my pieces of pine, and I was getting ready to do something with them. And I says, okay, let me have the lathe now. And he says, well, we don't let you use anything with a machine on it, with a motor on it. He says, what? And so I didn't know what to do. So what I finally did was I used a file and a rasp. And I made those 4 legs. And I don't remember exactly why, but my dad, my dad made a lathe of sorts. And he turned a great big lamp on it. And so after I finished the 7th grade, before I got into the 8th, which was where I was going to take metal shop, I decided that I was going to make another one of those stools, but I was going to use a lathe. And so that's when I made my first.
You still have it?
I know where they are. They're both in Colorado.
Okay. Good. A follow-up question real quickly. Why are you still turning today after so long? What makes it, why do you keep coming back to, why do you wood turn?
Well, I like to be with people. That's what it's for me. I like to teach. I like to get people to look at what I make. And I was actually thinking about it today. I want to take a brief moment here. So the challenge for next month is to make something you always wanted to make but never did, right? You've now got around to it. And I was thinking about that today. Last month I brought in that the giraffe bone, right? And so I slow down on turning sometimes. I don't. It's kind of hard to get up and say, well, I ought to go turn something. I said, no, I'll go pet the cat. And so why do I come back? Well, this giraffe bone that I've been turning, it is exciting. It is really interesting to me. when I come up with a new idea, something I haven't tried before, it's exciting, and that's why I turn. I mean, I taught a lot of things. I taught Japanese. I used to teach chess when I was when I was a lot shorter. And so I gravitate there anyhow. But why turn? Well, it's because there's a new thing to learn or do. That's what makes it good for me.
Folks, this is a $64,000 question. When talking to members about what what they really want to learn from the panel, this is the thing. What inspires them? Why do they keep doing it after so many years? When you could do anything. I mean, stamp collecting, base diving, hang gliding, whatever, wood turning, and it seems like this is what we really want to get at. So we're going to probe a little deeper on that question. So, anyone else got any comments that why have you been doing this so long? Chip, you've been doing it a long time.
First of all, it's already been touched upon, and that's the people, the members in this organization. But at home, I've got, in a fashion, most of all the tools that are out there in the other shop. I don't use them very often. When I turn on the lathe, the creativity starts right there. I mean, every time that chisel touches the wood, you're actually doing something. You can see something starting to take shape.
Great. Chip, what?
I just like somewhere to hide from my wife. So
Okay.
I found a shop to be a good place to go for therapy and hide.
Good. Anybody else? We got Kevin. You've been doing this a long time too. And what make Don?
Go ahead.
One thing I like to do is learn something new. With wood turning, there's so many different people doing it, so many different ways to do anything. There's always something new on the horizon. One thing I like to do is I'm a member of a lot of segmented wood turning clubs, and I see a lot of the stuff that's out there, and you think there'd be nothing new under the sun, but there is a lot of new things that no one has done. You can figure out something that no one has done to your knowledge and give it a try. It'll test your wood turning ability, because first of all, if you have never seen it done, you don't know how to do it, and that makes it even more interesting and exciting. So one thing that's kept my interest going is try to think of things that I don't think anyone has ever done before, certainly not me, and try to do it and just see if it turns out as good as I envision it. So that's what has kept me going.
Yeah, this piece that I have here, this tray, this was a project that the club had a number of years ago. You're supposed to take a standard 2x4, 8 foot long, and make something out of it. Anything, use your imagination. And there's one 2x4, 8 foot long in that tray stand there, and it was just part of this. The segmentation, I got it from Kevin. The offset turnings and the inside-outside turnings, things that I've learned here at the club, and just learn how to do all these little things, and you put it together, and you have fun. Just let your mind roll,
There are 4 or 5 people up here who are in the current issue of the AAW magazine as they had recognized our quarter century event. If you haven't seen your magazine, it's always good to see your own club or something that you're involved in be recognized.
Don Griss, you tell us, why you're still turning after all these years.
What are we going to do with all those tools?
Okay.
After a while, you get an awful lot of tools you need to use, but you need to use them to keep up your ability to use them right. And of course, we used to make a lot of bolts. Well, at some point, you say, where can I put another bolt? So there's other things that you can make. And in my case, I make some what we call drag-arounds, and it's just a little stool about this high with a single post that is very usable. You can use it anywhere, as a flower stand next to your chair or whatever. But after you get on to making something like that, all your relatives need one after they find out it's usually usable. So that makes your life maybe where you have a goal, and then you can actually use something that's every day like that. So
Great.
You taught us how to make glasses on the way too, with your wine bottles.
Yep.
I think the AAW challenge is a way to come up with something new that's been fun. It's not always successful, but you have a nice piece when you're finished.
I think the fun part's every time you chainsaw a piece of wood or you cut into it. I usually don't know what I'm going to make when I put it on the lathe until I see the inside, and then I try to figure out what I can do with it and make it look the best.
Great.
That, and you can start a project in the morning and get it done in one day instead of working weeks on one project. You can accomplish something and have a finished product.
Is there anyone from the audience allowed to ask a question?
Absolutely. Pat.
I would
What
like to know how many lifetimes of wood that you all have.
I used to get excited at storms because at
Yeah.
the dump sites, you could go pick up wood and take it home. People didn't understand why you were taking it home when they were dumping their broken tree limbs off, but it was really nice, and yeah, at least 2 or 3 lifetimes of wood at home.
It seems like wood turning, and just like everything else, there's trends that ebb and flow. And Jerry, tell us what the trends were when you first started turning, and are they the same now, or have they changed?
No, I think they have changed and changed pretty dramatically. At least I think when I first started, bowls and boxes and things like that, but things that served a utilitarian purpose. And from that, we've moved on to, if you just look at this last month's AAW magazine, a lot of true artwork is being done now. Not so much utilitarian work, but really true artwork. And I think that's one of the changes that's happened.
So you say it's gone from more functional forms to more artistic maybe not as functional.
Yeah, I think that's what I've observed, more something to be observed. I mean, more of an art form than a salad bowl or a jewelry box or something like that.
Has anybody else already got thoughts about that? Have they seen trends kind of come and go? Seems like things go in a cycle. Is that, maybe I'm all wet?
I think there's a lot more embellishment work going on today that is contributing to the artwork that Jerry's talking about. I don't have much luck with my half-inch chisel and a hammer.
Okay. What do you think the next major trend in wood turning is going to be?
More else are going to be top turners.
Okay.
I think the regular turner, the person who does what we currently do, is going to be looking at CNC turning and other types of automated or computerized type of programming that it seems to be in everything else. So it really comes down to which way do we want to develop our skills. And I think that everything else happens to be going computerized, so are we going to actually become technicians or future artisans?
What do you think, Rick?
Well, I think that when you come to that Y in the road, there's the technical side and the artistic side. And the technical side might be thread chasing, a Hans Westflog type of turning. These guys are just, they're like machines when they turn. And then you look at some of the French turners, and those guys are absolute artists, like an Alain Milland. And so I do agree, though, that the CNC is going to probably be a blend of that as well. So, most of the professional turners have almost all specialized in a particular area. And I think that's done on purpose. If you look at, say, a David Ellsworth, when he's turned his piece, you know exactly that's a David Ellsworth piece. And so there's other artists out there, Dixie Biggs, when she does a certain type of embellishing, and I think it kind of pigeonholes a person in doing that. So, there's the good and the bad.
Okay, who has helped you the most get to where you are today, Jim?
Well, I think
Who or what?
Yeah, well, I started with my father, and
Was he a better turner than you are?
Yeah, he had more time to do it than I did. But I think a lot of the demonstrations that we've had, Ferris has had demonstrations at their showroom that a lot of us went to. That's where I bought my one-way lathe, was from Ferris's when they had a store. And, of course, a lot of the videos that we have in the back, I don't know that everybody checks those out like we used to, but there's a lot of information in the back room.
Great. Anybody else have thoughts on what you would credit as really helping you develop where you are today as a turner?
Shortly after I began, I decided I wanted to start hollowing after I made a couple forms, and John Shackelford invited me to his house. He said, "Don't buy any tools till you come to my house. I've got every tool in his entire garage was just lined with tools," and he had pre-turned 2 different forms, and Linda and I spent an entire day with him, and we hollowed those 2 forms, and he showed us 3 or 4 different techniques and different tools to use. And from there he said, "Now don't go out and buy 1,000 tools, because you're only going to wind up using 3 or 4 of them." So I went out and bought 1,000 tools, and I used 3 or 4 of them. So he was right. And then Linda and I got hooked on Aeromont, and we wound up going 10 times, I think. And Ben Foe had a big influence on the work that I do, and a lot of Linda, Betty Scarpino, and myself, some fellows that emphasized form over productivity was very good. So I didn't have time to be a self-taught turner because I didn't start till I retired, so I had to get with it.
I think I enjoyed talking problems out with other people. When I first joined, one of the problems I had the most was hollowing. Hollowing's always a problem for wood turners. There's a lot of tools for hollowing, there's a lot of techniques, and it can be pretty hard. If it's a enclosed form or if it's an open form, it takes different tools, but the hard part is figuring out how you're going to do it. And like I say, there's a lot of people around here that know how to hollow, and you're going to get a lot of different opinions on how to do it. And they're all good, but my particular problem was learning how to successfully hollow, and I figured it out. I figured it out with the help of some of the people in our club. Sonny Sherrar and Earl Reed, I know you probably have never heard of them, but they were really good turners, and they were some of the first members, and they helped me a lot. And I think if you ask members questions on any sticking point, something that you're having trouble doing, you'll get a good answer. You'll get an answer different from everybody you ask. But they're all good answers because there's more than one way to solve a problem.
Ed, just shifting gears here quickly on another, I got a question for you. What's been the most significant advancement in wood turning since you started, and why?
Well, when I started, the first thing I turned, we moved into a new house, and we got a load of firewood. Well, it was green. You can't burn it. So I started turning it. And then I learned how, okay, if you turn green wood, if you cook it in the microwave and dries it out, it doesn't crack. It stays pretty much round. And then now the biggest thing for me is this guy in Segmated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always, he sent me a picture one time of a bowl, and that's a challenge for me. is trying to figure something out. Trying to come up with a way of doing something that I haven't seen before. And it's like my son sent me a picture of a bowl that he saw someplace. I think it was probably down in Florida in some store. And so he's, okay, how do you make this? Well, that's my challenge is, okay, coming up with a technique to do it and a series of steps to get something done.
You know, that seems like a common answer in talking with a lot of people, and how many trying to figure out kind of process woodturners go through.
Well, that's like I worked for Black & Veatch as a piping router. So we built power plants. So, okay, you got to get from this pump to that piece of equipment over there. Okay, how do you run the pipe and not hit something else? And once you get started, I had a job we did in Detroit, and the superintendent came back and he said, I don't know how you got all that pipe in there, because I had pipe on top of pipe, but you can't just run straight over the top because you got to have hangers to hang the pipe.
Wow.
So you're the guy that ran it through the I-beam.
No, I wasn't the guy that ran it through the I-beam, but I've got a picture of a outbuilding in the first building I routed, and when I went back up, and it was up at ITAN, and we went to tour the plant after it was built, and here they built a brick wall, a concrete block wall, and that pipe is encased in that concrete wall. So part of it's out and part of it's in.
Wow.
You know, one of the most important things with turning is keeping your damn tools sharp. And I think the most important tools that they came out with are jigs to sharpen tools with. Get you a good grinder and get you a good set of jigs to keep your tools sharp, because you're going to be sharpening tools a lot more. You know, the worst thing you can have is a dull tool. It's going to give you problems. So get a good jig to sharpen your tools with.
I'd like to probe into that a little bit, Bill, because when you first started, were there jigs available, or did you sharpen by hand?
Well, when I started out, I was sharpening by hand, but I wound up buying one of these jigs from Woodcraft, and it works great. Because the thing about it, if you're turning a piece and you're getting down, you just about got it like you want it done. The thing you should do is you should take your tool, go over, resharpen that tool for the last couple of cuts, because it'll make all the difference in the world in your finish on your piece.
You're probably using high carbon steel tools at the time, which don't hold an edge like the
but these right.
high speed steel we have now.
I got two grinders. One of them is for high speed steel, and the other one's for carbon steel, the old Sears and Sawbuck stuff. And keep your especially right before you get ready to finish a piece off, sharpen your tool, and you'll get a nice clean. Sandpaper's expensive, but a good sharp tool, it just makes sense, So, and it gets rid of, if you resharpen them, you get rid of those tool marks too. You get rid of all these little bumps, and you cannot sand them damn things away, because they'll just stay there, and it just, you got to cut them out. So.
Okay, I haven't got enough time for all the questions that I've got here, but let me focus on a couple here that we'll try to hear from some more folks on. Let's see, who haven't we heard from for a while? Anthony, this will be a good one for you. What one piece of practical advice would you give to someone starting out now in wood turning? One piece of good practical advice. Where's the microphone? Oh.
What? Hell, I don't know. I think you have to talk to somebody who knows how to do it. You have to, spend some time with, watch, practice.
Take a class.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the first things that popped into my head was ride the bevel, right? But everybody says that, and nobody knows what the hell it is.
Yeah.
So, and the other one is sharpen your tools, right? The last thing maybe would be just practice one thing. Like you're gonna make bowls, make 50 of them, and then go make something else.
A lot of people don't know, there's many ways to chuck up a piece of wood on a lathe. I mean, there's so many of them, everything from just, you know, between centers, that's common, but the newspaper chuck, there's all kinds of methods of chucking things up. And you ask these guys around here, if you got a problem chucking something up, ask them, they'll tell you. You may get more than one answer. But you know, it's real simple. You know, it depends on what piece you're working on as to what way you want to chuck it up.
I think that leads back to the question of how do you learn, and I think of Saturday mornings. And as I remember, our Saturday morning sessions used to be conducted as an educational session. Someone would give a demo, and then you would try to do what they had just demonstrated. But today, we encourage people, new members, visitors, what have you, to come into the Saturday morning sessions. And if you just want to have somebody help you plan out how to do something, there's some good minds in that room that can do that. But the other thing that happens in those Saturday morning sessions is somebody observes something or hears something, a catch or something on a lathe, somebody's going to get up from that table and go over and help them. That's a teaching process. We used to have a lot of repetition of that on the lathes on Saturday morning, and then somebody started bringing in donuts. So.
Okay. We have some folks, our actual panel members who are sitting in the audience because we didn't have enough chairs up here, but we'd like to hear from. Let me see if I can borrow the microphone here. And Frank, I've got a question for you.
Is it a hard one?
No, it's an easy one.